Chapter 1. A City of Darkness. Crescent Hollow was a city that thrived on misery. During the day, it pretended to be like any other metropolis. Bustling streets, towering skyscrapers, and people moving from one gray corner to the next. But at night, its true nature was revealed. The city became a vast and sprawling labyrinth of decay and despair, where shadows stretched long across alleys soaked in blood and secrets. The fog rolled in like a blanket of corruption, heavy and suffocating, hiding the worst of what the city had to offer. Nathan Cole stood at the edge of a rooftop, his gaze cast over the diseased heart of the city. The rain came down in steady sheets, washing away the grime from the streets, but never the filth that clung to its soul. He had once believed in this place. He had once believed he could save it. That was a lifetime ago. Nathan, once a detective with the Crescent Hollow Police Department, had tried to fight the crime from within. Back then, he thought the badge meant something, that if he worked hard enough, he could bring justice to the city. But the law was a broken tool in Crescent Hollow. Corruption had seeped into every level of power, and criminals like the broker, the faceless kingpin who pulled the strings from the shadows, controlled it all. The system that Nathan had devoted his life to had failed him, failed the people. And then it had taken everything from him, the fire. His mind rarely let him escape it. The memory burned through him, as hot as the flames that had consumed his family. Lily's laughter, the scent of her hair, the warmth of their home, it had all been snuffed out in one horrific night. He never found out who lit the match, but he knew who gave the order. The broker, the man whose name only ever passed through whispered lips, whose face no one had ever seen, had orchestrated it, and Nathan had died that night too. What was left was a hollow shell, a man who had cast aside the law for something far more brutal and efficient. Justice, as he had once known it, was dead. But vengeance, it was alive, and it burned within him. He was no longer Nathan Cole. He had become Nightfall, a ghost haunting the criminals that thrived in the darkness. A relentless predator, as invisible as the shadows he moved through. Tonight was no different. His black armor absorbed the pale glow of the city's sickly streetlights, making him blend seamlessly into the night. His face, covered by a dark hood and mask, was hidden from the world, just as his heart had become hidden from the pain. He stood silently on the rooftop, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the streets below. The rain fell harder, turning the city into a distorted blur of light and shadow. But Nathan saw through it. His keen eyes picked out the movements of men who thought they were safe in the dark corners of Crescent Hollow. They were the dregs of the city, low-level thugs working for a boss who controlled them like puppets. The shipments, the drugs, the weapons. It all flowed through Crescent Hollow like a disease, infecting everything it touched. Nathan's calm crackled to life in his ear. "Nightfall," came the voice of Alex, his only remaining contact within the police department. "We've got something. Garver's on the move. The docks." Nathan didn't speak, his lips pressed into a thin line. Ray Garver was a mid-level enforcer for the broker's operations, a snake who slithered through the underbelly of the city, always avoiding capture, always dodging justice. But Nathan wasn't bound by the law anymore. He was something else now, something far worse for men like Garver. "Be careful," Alex added, her voice strained. "The city's got eyes everywhere tonight. I can't cover you if things go bad." "They won't," Nathan replied, his voice a low growl. With that, he stepped off the edge of the rooftop, disappearing into the night. The alleys of Crescent Hollow were a maze, but Nathan moved through them like a shadow, silent and deadly. His every step was calculated, every sound drowned out by the rain. As he approached the docks, he slowed, his senses heightened. The docks were a no-man's land, a place where even the police dared not go. Deals were made, lives were taken, and the broker's empire grew stronger with every transaction. Garver would be here, and with him, the key to unraveling the broker's web. Nathan crouched low behind a rusted container, his eyes scanning the area. The docks were alive with activity, figures moving in and out of the shadows, crates being unloaded from ships under the cover of darkness. And there, standing in the middle of it all, was Garver, He was flanked by two heavily armed men, their faces obscured by the darkness. But Nathan knew the type. Hired muscle, men with no names who killed for a paycheck. But Garver, he was the target. If Nathan could get to him, he could finally get closer to the broker. And then, inside him, the need for violence gnawing at his mind. But he pushed it down, forcing himself to stay focused. He couldn't afford to lose control. Not yet. He moved swiftly, circling the perimeter of the docks, his eyes never leaving Garver. The men around him were on edge, their hands hovering over their weapons. Whatever deal was going down tonight, it was big. Nathan could sense the tension in the air, feel the fear radiating off them. They were waiting for something, or someone. Nathan reached the edge of the container, his heart pounding in his chest. He was close now, close enough to hear their voices. He could hear Garver laughing, a smug grin on his face, as he barely glanced at the crate being unloaded before him. And then Nathan moved. In a flash, he was on them. The first guard went down with a sickening crunch, his body crumpling to the ground before he could even draw his gun. The second turned, eyes wide with fear, but Nathan was already there, a blur of motion as he took him down with a single devastating punch. Garver stumbled back, his face pale as he reached for his gun. But Nathan was faster. He grabbed Garver by the throat, slamming him against the container with enough force to rattle the metal. "Where's the broker?" Nathan's voice was a low, deadly whisper. Garver's eyes bulged, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he struggled to speak. I don't know." Nathan tightened his grip, his face inches from Garver's. "Wrong answer." Garver's hands clawed at Nathan's arm, his voice a desperate croak. Wait, please. There's a shipment. Tomorrow, at the docks. The broker's involved, I swear." Nathan's eyes narrowed, searching Garver's face for any sign of a lie. But he saw only fear, raw, unfiltered terror. "Don't make me regret letting you live," Nathan growled, releasing Garver and letting him collapse to the ground. As Garver scrambled away, disappearing into the rain-soaked night, Nathan turned his gaze toward the horizon. Tomorrow, the docks. This was the closest he had been to the broker in years, and tomorrow it will end. For good.